For me, collecting is really truly about the story and where it's come from and how we've gotten to the point that we are now with it and how that has helped to evolve not just the game, but the way things go in life. The simpler days to today that really kind of have changed the outlook of where the game was simply a game to now the game being much more of a business. Great privilege when I was growing up playing the game of hockey. I remember going to the arenas with my dad, and he would take me to play, and after the game I would always ask for a pack of hockey cards. And I always looked forward to that almost as much as I did playing the actual game. And especially when you'd open up those cards at the end, I would always hope to get the hometown Toronto Maple Leafs. One pack turned into two turned into five, and every week I would look forward to getting them. Anytime I got an allowance, anytime I had any money, I'd run down to the corner store and buy a couple packs of hockey cards. Next thing you know, cards turned from one set into almost 100,000 sports cards at one point, where I had significant sets, and the collection had just grown to a point where I had pretty much everything that I wanted to in that area. So I found an interest in game used stuff. Again, going to the Maple Leaf Gardens as a young kid, walking in the front doors with your dad was incredible. You'd walk in and you'd see the pictures on the walls and the lifelike images as you'd walk in. It was almost like the ghosts would stand out at you. And some of my greatest memories were with my dad in the stands sitting in section 67, row F, seats 1 and 2 in the greens. I'll never forget that. My dad had brought home a hockey stick, and on that hockey stick they had one entire half of it shaved off, one side of it shaved off, where a bunch of the players had signed. And I thought, to me, that was the coolest thing, because you couldn't just go into the store, Sears or Simpsons or anything, and just buy something like that. You could buy a jersey, you could buy a t-shirt, but anybody could have that t-shirt. I like the one-offs, I like the one-ofs, one-of-a-kind, things that you just can't get in a store. Quite often, people will say, have you ever thought about selling the collection, or are you comparing yourself to others that are collectors? And for me, it's never been about that. To me, it's all about the story behind everything. I'd love the thought of walking in and being able to see the past and learning about where this team has come from. So for me, every unique piece, every story behind it actually adds to the history of this team. And that's what really gets me excited about it, is the uniqueness behind each and every piece, and the fact that it has a story. I remember going in as a kid, and you'd walk in and you'd see the row of Stanley Cup champions from the past. And when you'd walk in, especially in a playoff game, it was almost like they just came alive. And so I had the opportunity to acquire that particular piece, and it's a big piece. It's about 6.5 feet by 5 feet, and so it's a pretty dominating piece. And it's one that I've never thought that I'd have the opportunity to own, but I do, and so that's one of my absolute favorites. The Bill Barilko hockey stick from when him and his brother had opened up the Barilko Brothers TV shop. It wasn't just TVs, they sold everything from fishing worms to sporting goods, and so he had opened a store with his brother before he passed away. And on the grand opening of that store, they had given away little cardboard hockey sticks, and not many people have ever seen one. And I was lucky enough to come across one that's signed by 3 players from the opening day of that store, and one of them was Bill Barilko. So that's a pretty neat piece as well. I really enjoy that one. Ted Kennedy, I was lucky enough to track down in the mid-90s, working at Fort Erie Racetrack. And I had gotten an autograph sheet that I was missing his autograph. So I reached out to him and just simply asked him, I was hoping that maybe I could get an autograph on the similar sized piece of paper to frame with the rest of the team. And it was amazing how, when I had just brought up the 1946-47 team to him, he went on for about 45 minutes about stories about the team. He invited me down to the racetrack and wanted me to come down. And you know, it's amazing how the previous players in a lot of ways are so humble and will never understand the aura that's around them and what they've done for the game for where it is today. And I don't know if it'll ever be truly appreciated. A buddy of mine had a Ted Kennedy 1953 jersey. I had always wanted a wool jersey and Ted Kennedy, because of the fact that I had talked to him and had the chance to actually have a good chat with him, became one of the players that I wished that I could have truly watched play. And here I am looking at a Ted Kennedy jersey, game used, photo matched, ready to go, and I wanted that jersey. And the jersey was available for trade, except it was going to cost me quite a bit. And so part of the package that I had traded was Bobby Hull's last jersey that he wore in the National Hockey League with the Hartford Whalers. So when I was bringing it to the show in Toronto here, I had wanted to get a picture with Bobby with the jersey before we had made the deal. And when I walked up to Bobby, I said, Mr. Hull, I said, I've got, this is your last jersey that you wore in the National Hockey League. And he looked at it and he said, do you want to sell that jersey? I'd really like it. And I said, well, Mr. Hull, I've actually made a trade for that jersey. And he said, well, who'd you trade me for? And I said, I traded you for Ted Kennedy. He looks at me and goes, that's a pretty good trade. So I thought it was kind of funny coming from him and the respect that he had for Ted Kennedy. And he did mention that. It was an amazing day to be able to meet, Mr. Hull and have him show the ultimate respect for one of the greatest Maple Leafs of all time. I was given a card and mentioned that Johnny had wanted me to give him a call. I was like, Johnny who? And he said, Johnny Bower. And so I was kind of taken back, because obviously one of the greatest, not only hockey players, but people of all time, had wanted to come over and see my collection. And that was the day that I kind of realized that maybe I had something a little bit more than I had just realized. I'm still taken back when people walk down here and let me know what they think of the collection. I still see it as just my kind of fun junk put together. And to have Johnny Bower on the phone, and what a privilege it was to speak to him on the phone, and how excited he was to want to come out and see the collection that I had and talk about some of the pieces that I had. That was amazing, and unfortunately I was one of the last people to speak to him before he was hospitalized, and we lost him, unfortunately, and lost a great person. The Johnny Bower net, the one really unique thing was that after he had passed away, I had posted on social media that I was lucky enough to speak to him before he had gone, and it was really sad that I never got a chance to actually have him over. And a gentleman had reached out to me from Columbus, Ohio, and had mentioned that he had a net that Johnny Bower had protected for 13 years in Columbus. And he'd bought it for his dad, who's a big Cleveland sports fan, and they couldn't fit it in the house. So it had been sitting outside for many years. And so he had taken the netting off, and it had been sitting out there, and it was basically deteriorating and getting to a point where it was almost ready for the scrapyard. Immediately the next day I rented a U-Haul and made my way down non-stop down to Columbus, Ohio to pick up this net and come back. A lot of people thought I was crazy, especially the guy at the border when he asked me what I was doing. And I said I had just come down to pick up a hockey net. And so it was an interesting one, and drove down as quickly as I could, got it back, and then conducted a full restoration. It was past the point of trying to keep the original, it in its original state. So it was required for a full restoration, and so I managed to put it all back. I took a lot of pride in it, and it meant a lot because obviously the influence that someone like a Johnny Bower had on not just as a hockey person, but if you hear the stories that he, what he did for kids and the constant, charity work that he did, I'm honored to have anything that belongs to him in my collection. I was lucky enough to have Frank Mahovlich in the house here, walking around, looking around at the collection, and I was kind of blown out of the water. Here's one of the greatest, not just Toronto Maple Leafs, but hockey players of all time, and classy people as well. I mean, he was a part of the Senate. He was part of, of the changing game as well, from the 60s to the 70s, and so you have this gentleman in your house, and he was taken back, and I was. Sometimes you don't realize that when a person walks in and they tell you they've never seen anything like this before, and so for me that's a great privilege, and I've had a couple of the others over as well, and when they walk down, it almost feels like when they come down here that they go back in time, and it allows them to open up with some stories. I was lucky enough to have Jim McKenney here as well. And the stories that he has, if I've met a better person in life, I can't remember. And the stories that he had when he came down here, looking through the old hockey cards, and it was just a privilege. We always want to be a fly on the wall, and that's what we always talk about. And I found that the few times that that's happened, I get to be the fly on the wall, and I get to actually sit back and just let them, share the memories and the stories that they have, and some of the ghosts that come out with it. You almost feel the presence of others around them. This is some of the greatest memories that I have with my dad, right? So it really does tug at the heartstrings a little bit, because I don't even know that he realized how much it meant to me until years down the road. I'm sure it meant a lot to him taking his son to hockey and stuff. When I knew that I was going to be going to the game with my dad, it really, it was that moment. We would go to the same restaurant. We'd go to Swiss Chalet before every game, and we'd be there at the same time. And you'd go to the game and the organ would play, and when certain beats of the organ would go, you'd bang knees, and so it was just, it's the moment that I don't know that you'll ever forget. And recently, just this year, I went back to a game with my dad, and again, we hadn't been to a game in years, because he goes to Florida and stuff for winter, and we had gone to a game together, and right away when the organ started playing, we banged knees just like it was when we were kids, and it was almost like time had just not forgotten what those memories were like for you as a kid. I've had some crazy offers for a few of the things that I have, and people say, well, why wouldn't you sell it? And I just don't want to. I like what I've got, and I like the stories behind it again, and for me it's about maintaining that history and being able to walk in and kind of think I have something that no one else has. And it's not about putting me in a status by any means. It's just about sharing the story. When I have my friends over, quite often they'll come over and watch the games with me, and we'll sit down there. It might be tight in some spaces, but and some of them are afraid of touching things, but for me, it's really all about the moment. Why not create more ourselves? And that's kind of what I enjoy about it. The only way that I want to be known as is just another fan, and I enjoy that. Again, it's brought me some great friendships. It's brought me some great opportunities, and to meet people that really kind of add to the whole story. And I don't know what's going to happen with it. I'm hoping that it'll end up in a spot. It may end up in the Hall of Fame, but wherever it ends up, I just hope that the story can continue.